I moved into the new place on a Tuesday. It was a brownstone building in a quiet, upscale part of Portland. 2 bedrooms, hardwood floors, a small balcony that overlooked the street. Perfect for someone like me who worked remotely and liked silence. The real estate agent told me the top floor had been empty for a while. Something about renovations that never got finished. I didn't care. No upstairs neighbors meant no footsteps at 2 a.m., no loud music, no kids jumping above my ceiling. Ideal. My name's Elliot Grayson. 34, freelance graphic designer, borderline obsessive about routines. I don't do well with surprises or noise, which is why what happened in that apartment, what kept happening, nearly drove me to the edge. It started 3 days after I moved in. I was working late on a deadline, headphones off, sipping coffee gone cold when I heard it. Footsteps above me. Not just a creak or two. Heavy, deliberate pacing. Back and forth, over and over, as if someone were walking in a loop across the ceiling. My first reaction wasn't fear, just confusion. I paused the work, looked up, and listened. The steps were rhythmic, maybe 30 seconds apart, circling above my living room. I even laughed, thinking maybe the landlord forgot to mention the upstairs unit had been rented. But it felt wrong. I grabbed my phone and messaged Thomas, the building manager. "Hey, just checking. Did someone move in upstairs?" He replied within seconds. "Nope. Still vacant." "What?" I stared at the text, then typed back. "I hear footsteps." "Thomas, probably the building settling. Oldwood can be weird." I didn't sleep much that night. The next day, things were quiet. I convinced myself it really was the building. Old structures shift. They creak, expand, contract. It's normal. But that same evening, as I was watching a film, the footsteps returned. Same pattern. Pacing. Looping. This time it was louder and accompanied by a low, dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled across the floor. I muted the TV and stood up, staring at the ceiling. My upstairs light fixture swayed slightly. I wanted to believe it was just vibrations, but deep down, something didn't add up. I grabbed my coat and went outside. The stairwell to the upper unit was locked, as expected. The curtains in the windows above were still drawn tight, just like when I moved in. No lights on. I knocked on the door anyway. No answer. Just the sound of my own heart beating louder than usual. I tried to peek through a gap in the curtain, but saw nothing inside. Just a faint glimmer of dust particles in the moonlight. It looked untouched. I went back downstairs and sat on my couch, trying to focus on the movie. But the pacing started again, and this time it was accompanied by something new. A low, distant whisper, like a radio tuned between stations. I didn't sleep at all. By Friday, I was a wreck. Bloodshot eyes, wired nerves, and paranoia that grew by the hour. I set up my phone to record audio overnight, hoping to catch the sounds, prove to myself I wasn't imagining it. The next morning, I played it back. For the first hour, nothing. But then came the footsteps, clear as day, and the dragging. But what made my blood freeze wasn't the footsteps. It was a voice, faint and grainy, muttering a phrase I couldn't quite understand. I replayed it a dozen times, isolating the sound. It sounded like, "Don't forget me." I called Thomas again, told him everything. He sounded annoyed but agreed to come by. When he arrived, I showed him the recording. He just shook his head. "Elliot, I promise you, no one's lived up there for over a year. I have the keys. If you want, we can check it out together." We climbed the stairs to the top floor. He unlocked the door, and we stepped inside. The air was thick, stale, with that odd, old wood smell. Dust blanketed everything. There were no footprints, no signs of movement, no furniture. Just bare floors, white walls, and silence. I walked to the spot I believed the pacing would have happened. Nothing felt off. No cold spots, no creaks. Just an empty apartment. Thomas clapped his hands. "See? Nothing. Probably squirrels in the ceiling or pipes shifting." I nodded, trying to play along, but something gnawed at me. On the way out, I noticed a patch on the wall that looked fresher than the rest, like a repair job. A square, maybe 2 feet wide. It was painted over, but just barely. That night, I couldn't help but stare at my ceiling. The footsteps didn't come, but I heard something else, knocking. Soft, irregular taps that seemed to echo through the walls, like someone trying not to be heard. I turned on all the lights in the apartment and sat on the edge of my bed, clutching a flashlight and a kitchen knife like some bad horror cliché. I didn't sleep. Again. The next morning, I ran into my downstairs neighbor, Maya, as I was taking out the trash. She looked at me like I hadn't showered in a week, which, to be fair, I hadn't. "You okay?" she asked. "Do you ever hear noises?" I asked. She hesitated. "From upstairs." I nodded. She looked around, then leaned in. "I used to. A lot. That's why the last guy moved out. He swore there was someone living up there, but the place was empty. I thought he was losing it. Now I'm not so sure." I wanted to ask more, but she quickly excused herself and went back inside. I've started dreaming about the apartment now. In my sleep, I'm walking through it. Only, it's not empty. There's furniture. A table, a chair, a bed with rumpled sheets. And someone's always standing in the far corner, their back turned to me, murmuring to the wall. Every time I get close, I wake up. Last night, I had the dream again. But this time, the person turned around. I didn't recognize the face, but the eyes, they were sunken, black, almost burned into their sockets. And when they opened their mouth, the voice was the same one from the recording. "Don't forget me. I don't know what's happening up there, but I'm done pretending it's nothing. I'm going to find out what's behind that patch on the wall, even if it kills me." I waited until midnight. That was when the pacing started again. It hadn't happened in 2 nights, almost like it was waiting for me to let my guard down. But when the footsteps resumed, louder and faster than ever, I knew I wasn't imagining it. I grabbed my flashlight, a screwdriver, and a hammer. I had to see what was behind that patched wall in the apartment upstairs. No more guessing. No more second guessing. The hallway light flickered as I climbed the stairs. My fingers shook when I unlocked the top floor door using the spare key Thomas had let me borrow just in case. The apartment smelled worse this time, like old mold and something metallic. The air felt dense, like it hadn't been touched in decades. The dust on the floor was still undisturbed. Except for one thing, the patch in the wall. It was bleeding. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. But no, there was a dark stain seeping from the edge of the square patch, trailing down like thick black ink. I touched it. It was cold. Sticky. It didn't look like paint, and it sure as hell didn't smell like it. I took a step back, raised the hammer, and smashed the edge of the patch. The sound echoed through the building. I waited, half expecting Thomas or Maya to come running, but nothing happened. I kept going, tearing at the drywall, chunks falling to the floor like plaster snow. After 5 minutes of frantic hacking, the patch finally gave way. Behind it was a hollow, not just a wall cavity, a small, hidden space about the size of a closet. And inside, there was a chair. An old wooden chair with restraints on the arms and legs, like something you'd find in a forgotten asylum. Next to it sat a broken tape recorder, wires frayed, dust-caked reels still inside. And behind the chair, covering the inside wall, were dozens, no, hundreds, of scratch tally marks. Carved deep, desperate, like someone counting days or failed escapes. I stared at the space, horrified. There was no blood, no bones, but it was obvious. Someone had been kept here, trapped, left to rot in silence. And that's when I noticed the writing. On the interior wall, beneath the tally marks, written in what looked like rust or dried blood, was a name. Eli Morgan, 1987. "Don't forget me." My breath caught. The same phrase from the audio. I dropped the hammer and stumbled back into the room, my heart hammering like it was trying to escape my chest. Suddenly, the temperature in the room dropped. I could see my breath. The door behind me slammed shut. Then came the whispers. First from the wall, then from the ceiling, then, somehow, from inside my own ears. Dozens of voices, all murmuring over each other like a swarm of memories too loud to contain. One voice rose above the rest. Male. Desperate. Familiar. "Elliot, you found me." I turned, flashlight shaking in my hand. The wall was no longer hollow. The space was sealed again. No chair. No tally marks. Just drywall, smooth and untouched, like it had never been opened. I backed away slowly, eyes locked on the wall, then sprinted out of the apartment and slammed the door behind me. I didn't stop running until I reached my own unit downstairs. I locked every door, every window, and sat on the floor in the dark, breathing like I'd just escaped something I didn't understand. The next morning, I marched to Thomas's office. "Who is Eli Morgan?" I asked, slamming my phone on his desk. He went pale instantly. "Where did you hear that name?" "From the wall upstairs," I snapped. "From the tape recorder." from the whispers that haven't stopped since I moved in. Thomas leaned back in his chair, visibly rattled. Eli was a tenant. Long time ago. Lived upstairs alone. Quiet guy. A little odd. People said he was harmless. What happened to him? He disappeared. Back in '89. No signs of forced entry. No body. Cops assumed he ran off. Left his stuff behind. His family put out a missing persons report, but eventually gave up. The apartment stayed empty for years after that. No one wanted to live there. Too many stories. I wanted to scream. You should have told me this before I moved in. Thomas looked down at his hands. I thought it was over. It wasn't. That night, I played the old tape recorder from the hidden space. Somehow, despite the busted wires and rusted reels, it worked. The static was unbearable, but under it was a voice, tired, cracked, pleading. I'm still here. They locked me in. Don't forget me. Then silence. And then a scream, so sharp and broken it felt like glass shattering in my ears. I dropped the recorder, and the scream didn't stop. It echoed around my apartment, not from the device, but from the walls, like the building itself was crying out. My lights blew out. My laptop shorted. My phone froze on one image, the tally marks. My own reflection in the screen showed someone behind me. Someone pale, sunken, eyes like burned holes. I turned, but no one was there. Or maybe I just couldn't see him anymore. Now, the footsteps never stop. Morning, night, 3 a.m., noon, it doesn't matter. They loop endlessly above me. Sometimes I hear scratching in the vents. Sometimes I see flashes in the hallway camera feed. A shadow that lingers one frame too long. A figure standing outside the upstairs window with his head tilted just a little too far to the left. I think I let something out when I opened that wall. Or maybe it never left. I couldn't escape it. Not the footsteps. Not the whispers. Not the feeling that something, or someone, was watching me. Always watching, always waiting. I tried to leave. I packed up everything, clothes, books, even my desk lamp, and went down to the lobby, ready to leave it all behind. But when I reached the door, I froze. It wasn't locked. The hallway light flickered again, and the air, thick, heavy, like I was suffocating, pulled me back. I walked back up to my apartment, telling myself it was just fear. It was just the paranoia. But deep inside, I knew something was different. I wasn't alone. I never had been. And that's when the knocking started. Not from above this time. From inside my apartment. I stood still, trying to control my breathing, but my heart pounded so loudly I thought the walls would crack. The knocking came again. Slow. Measured. Like a person trying to get my attention. 3 knocks, then silence. 3 knocks again. It was like a ritual, a warning. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. Something in the air held my voice in place. I grabbed the flashlight, turned it on, and moved down the hallway toward the living room, where the sound had come from. There, standing in front of the wall I had torn open weeks ago, was something new. A shadow. A man-shaped silhouette that looked almost familiar. His outline was blurry, like he was partially made of smoke, but the eyes, those hollow eyes, were clearer than ever. They were Eli's eyes. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. I just stood there, frozen, watching as the shadow grew more defined, inch by inch, until I could see every detail. His hair was unkempt, his skin as pale as paper, and his clothes, ragged, torn, hung off him like a reminder of what he had become. His hand reached forward, but instead of a normal human hand, it was skeletal, fingers thin and bony, stretching as though it was trying to grasp for something, someone. I took a step back, but my foot caught the edge of a table, and I stumbled, breaking the silence. The figure's head snapped toward me. His mouth moved, though no sound came out. But I could feel the words in my chest, as if his voice was crawling under my skin, reaching deep inside. I'm not gone. You woke me up. Suddenly, the lights flickered violently, then went out completely. The darkness swallowed everything. But the figure remained. I could feel him there, close, just inches away. I closed my eyes, not wanting to see it, not wanting to believe it. And then the whispers returned. Louder now. Insistent. Don't forget me. I felt something cold on the back of my neck. The same chill I had felt when I opened the wall. The same feeling of being watched from all sides. I opened my eyes again, but the figure was gone. The room was empty. Yet, it wasn't empty. The air was heavy, like it was thick with memories, bad ones. I turned around, my eyes falling on the spot where the wall had been ripped open. but it wasn't the same anymore. The drywall was patched up, completely smooth, without a single sign of the damage I had caused. The tally marks, the chair, the tape recorder, all gone. It was as if nothing had ever been there at all. But I knew better. The whispers never stopped. I went to the landlord the next morning, demanding answers. His office was empty. The door was locked. I tried calling, but the phone was disconnected. I went back to the building. All the lights in the hallways were off, except for one. The door to the apartment above me was wide open. I couldn't help myself. I walked in. Inside, it was pristine, completely clean, like someone had been there every day, tidying up, making sure nothing was disturbed. The walls were freshly painted. There were no signs of the things I had seen. But the air, again, was thick, suffocating, pulling me toward the back of the apartment. I walked down the hall and into the bedroom. The closet door was ajar, and inside, I saw something I wasn't prepared for. A man, sitting in the corner, his hair long, tangled, and matted, his clothes torn, just like the figure I had seen. But this wasn't a shadow. This was flesh and bone. His eyes, dark and sunken, met mine. I didn't need to speak. I didn't need to ask. I could feel it. Eli Morgan. And just as the name passed through my mind, the man stood, his body jerking violently like it was moving against its will. He stepped toward me, and with each step, his body seemed to blur, as if reality couldn't hold him in place. His mouth opened wide, stretching impossibly wide, a black void in his face. The whispers grew louder, blending into a single, unified scream. "You woke me up," he hissed. And in that moment, the door slammed shut behind me. The world tilted. The walls warped. The ground beneath me shifted, as if the building itself was being pulled into another dimension. I reached for the door handle, but it was gone. No more walls, no more doors, just endless blackness. I spun around, the sound of Eli's voice growing louder, the whispers mixing into one deafening roar. "I'm not gone. You woke me up." In that final, horrible moment, I realized something. The building wasn't haunted by the dead. It was haunted by something worse. It was haunted by the people who were never meant to leave.